بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
There's something Allah has given us, an additional bonus in this month that we should really take opportunity of, really take advantage of. Some of you may have heard me talk about this. I know the lecture's out on YouTube or whatever. I don't know how everything gets on YouTube. But I don't care, I'll talk about it again. Because Qur'an repeats itself, why can't speakers repeat themselves? وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي عَنِّي. The conversation happening up until now in these ayat was كُتِبَ عَلَيْكُمْ يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. You who believe, Muslim community, I'm talking to you. In the very next ayah, Allah doesn't talk to us, He's talking to His Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And He says, whenever my slaves ask you about me. Whenever my slaves ask you about me. Do you know the difference between when and if? There's a father whose son goes to the army. Does he say, if my son comes back, I'll be so happy? What does he say? When my son comes back, it'll be amazing. He never says if, because if is hopeless. If seems to suggest in my mind, maybe he's dead, or he's not making it. But his hope is alive, so he says, in anticipation and love, in joy, he says when. Allah didn't say, if my slave asks you about me. He said, when my slave will ask you about me, because Allah is waiting in anticipation for you to ask about Him. For me to ask about Him. He didn't say if, He said when. When are you going to ask about me? When are you going to want to learn more about me? And who should you ask? You should ask the right teacher. So who do they come and ask? The Sahaba? Ibadi? Who do they go ask? The Prophet ﷺ. Now here's the logical flow of the conversation. I want you to appreciate these subtleties in the Qur'an. If they ask you about me, then tell them I am near. That's the supposed ayah. Allah did not say, then tell them. فَقُلْ لَهُمْ لم يذكر هذا. إِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي عَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ. If my slaves ask you about me, you don't tell them I am near. You know what? I'm going to tell them myself. Then I am near. All you had to do to get close to Allah was ask about Him. Somebody says, I feel so distant from Allah, man. I feel so distant. Allah says, have you asked about me? You know when you miss someone, you ask about them. You know that, right? You miss Allah? You want to talk to Him? Ask about Him? Allah guarantees. And by the way, don't be in any doubt. I am near. Inni qareeb. But the ayah said, if my slaves ask you about me, ibadi. Somebody might say, but I'm not a good slave. I'm not that good. Maybe Allah is close to the people that are good, but I'm not one of those guys. How can He be close to me? Allah says, ujibu. I respond. And before I share this with you, you need to understand the comparison. How many of you work for a big corporation? If you work for a big corporation, maybe 500 employees, 1,000 employees, how often do you see your CEO? You don't. If maybe you saw your CEO, how long would it be? Minutes are pretty heavy. Maybe a couple of seconds maybe. You know, he'd walk by your cubicle and he'd say maybe one word, how's it going? And it'd be like the highlight of your life. You know who said, how's it going to me? Oh, that was amazing, bro. And I was like, I'm alright. Yep, I responded. You know? When somebody is very high up and is responsible for a lot of people, then he doesn't respond to every one of the requests. He doesn't have time for you. You have to make time for him. He won't make time for you. I can't say, well, you know, I was listening to the radio and I heard Obama's speech. I didn't like what he said. You know what? I'm going to give him a call. Yo, what you saying, man? Why you got to say it like that? Is that going to work? No, because he's a little higher up. Just a little bit, you know. I can't just have a direct conversation. Yeah, now, the lowest employee in your company is who? Don't say me. Like the guy, there's maybe the intern, maybe the secretary, maybe the janitor, the lowest status in your organization, the lowest status. And the CEO would be the highest. The word slave, is there any lower job description in existence? No. Slave means there's no one below you, bro. You know, there's no one below you. And Allah is Rabb, which means there's no one higher than Him. So now you're talking about communication between the highest possible and the lowest possible. In every other situation in the world, this conversation is impossible. And if it happens, it'll happen. If you get lucky, if you really get lucky, it might happen by chance. It might occur, but you're not going to be able to. And if it happens, it won't be regular. It's weird. Allah says, I am near to my slaves. First of all, you would think master should be distant from slaves. But this supremely high says, as low as you are as slaves, I am near you. And on top of that, He can't respond to, someone up above doesn't respond to all your requests. Allah says, Ujibu, I immediately respond. I immediately respond. What comes first, request or response? Logically speaking, what comes first? Allah didn't even mention the request. That is إِذَا دَعَانِي. That's the request portion of the ayah. We haven't even translated that yet. Allah says, I'm so anxious to respond, I'll mention my response first, I'll mention the request later. SubhanAllah. Ujibu da'wata da'i is first. إِذَا دَعَانِ is later. It's incredible. The actual sequence is إِذَا دَعَانِ ujib. When He calls me, I answer. He says, no, I answer when He calls. He mentions His enthusiasm. First we learned He's in wait. He's waiting for us to ask about Him. Then He says, I will respond immediately. By the way, there are two words for answering. There's astajibu and ujibu. Astajibu means I will try to answer, or I will answer over time. Two meanings. I will try to answer and I will answer over time. Also means I want to answer. Just because somebody wants to answer, does that mean they actually answer? No. But if you say ujibu, it means I immediately answer. People that are important, you have to leave them voicemails and they will maybe call you back in 2 years. Allah says, you don't have to leave me a voicemail. I'll respond immediately. But the thing is, and I'll give you another example to help you understand this better, I had to take my daughter to a specialist. One of my daughters, she needed to see a specialist. And these specialists, they're very rare. Every city has 2 or 3, maybe. And you go to them and they have a long waiting list. And they give you an appointment 3 months later. And it's not up to you what day. They say there's an opening, you want it or no. Take it or leave it. So you take it. And if you're 10 minutes late, what are they going to do? Another 4 months, 5 months, go. I don't have time for you. When you have to meet with someone important, your schedule doesn't matter, their schedule matters. Isn't that logical? Doesn't that make sense? Allah says, I respond to the call of the caller, إِذَا دَعَانِ, whenever he calls me. Call me whenever you want. Middle of the day, middle of the night, whenever it's convenient for you, I, the Most High, will make immediate time for you, the Most Low. Isn't that something? The power of dua. Allah is inviting you and me to make dua whenever. Whenever. إِذَا دَعَانِ. But there's more. I want to share a couple more things with you. He says, da'wa, da'wata. What is this called in Arabic? Some of you, even if you don't know Arabic, you know this word. What is it? Dua. He didn't say, ujibu du'a ad-da'i. He said, ujibu da'wat ad-da'i. Da'wa, with this ta marbuta at the end. I know I'm getting Arabic a little bit, but I'll simplify it in a sec. This ta marbuta actually is called masdar marra. What this means in the English language is something that happens at a single moment. Allah is saying, I'm not talking about me responding to someone who makes dua all the time, he prays to me all the time. Even if there's a guy who's never prayed to me and he decided one time to turn to me sincerely. One time he made dua to me. That guy, I'm talking about that guy, da'wata, a single call. And then he said, ad-da'i, I respond to the call of the caller. Let me tell you this. A caller could be anybody, isn't it? A caller could be anyone. Does a caller have to be a righteous person to be a caller? No. The Arabic word caller captures anybody. Allah didn't say you have to be this righteous, your beard has to be this long, you must have prayed this many prayers, you must have finished Hajj, you must have done this and this and this, and you must be purified of all these sins before you get to call me. He says, so long as you're a caller, and even if you call once, I'll respond. How many calls does he get? Can you imagine? Now when you get a lot of calls, is it easy for you and me to forget who was I talking to? I have a horrible memory. I mean, I mix up my kids' names. I have a terrible memory. Brother comes up to me and says, brother, I met you last year at the convention. I was like, okay. I don't remember. I'm sorry. I start my conversation with an apology. I'm sorry, I don't remember. You know, you look familiar though, like kind of Muslim. You know, that's all I can say. I can't say much more. Allah did not say, and by the way, when somebody is anonymous, you call them a caller. When somebody is known and recognized, you call them the caller. Allah didn't say, ujibu da'wata da'in. He said, ujibu da'wata da'i. I respond to the call of the caller. Meaning he's not just anyone to me. He is not an A, he is a the. He is particular to me. He's unique to me. He's an individual to me. So you and I have a direct, no shared access with Allah, in which He recognizes every one of our presences and every single one of our du'as, because du'a could have been all du'a, but da'wah is every single one of them, with the tamar butatiya. Da'wat ad-da'i, whenever you call. This is Allah's invitation. This is the passage about Ramadan, right? When is this invitation most open? Ramadan. You really want to get your act together with dua? When do you get that jump started, super jump started? Ramadan. He is near. He's opened that invitation.